Joey used 0.432 pounds of cheese to make mac and cheese for dinner. We could also call this 432 thousandths pounds of cheese to make mac and cheese for dinner. Round the amount of cheese to the nearest tenth. So the amount of cheese, once again, is 0.432 pounds. And just remember the places here. This is 4 tenths, so that's the tenths place. This is the hundredths place, and that's an S there, so tenths, hundredths. And this right over here is thousandths place. So we want to round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to round to the nearest tenth. We go one place to the right. If it's 5 or larger, we round up. This would become a 5. If it's less than 5, so if it's less than 5, which is the case here, we're going to round down to just 4 tenths even. So because 3 is less than 5, we are going to round down. And we're going to get 0.400, or we could write that as 0.4, or we could write that as 4 tenths of a pound. Let's do another one. Eliza's pet snail traveled 2.197 meters in one day. Round the distance to the nearest hundredth. So pause this video and see if you can do that. Round the distance to the nearest hundredth. So it's 2.197. This is the hundredths place right over here. And so if we're going to round to the nearest hundredth, we're going to go one place to the right. If this one place to the right is 5 or greater, we're going to round up. And 7 is 5 or greater, so we are going to round up. Now this is interesting, because if you round a 9 up, you get to 10, but you can't put a whole 10 right over here. So one way to think about it is we have a 19 here. And so if you round up, you're going to go to a 20. And so, or another way to think about it, if you round the 9 up, you're going to go to the next tenth. So this is going to be you could view this as 19 hundredths, or 19 hundredths and 7 thousandths. And so now we're going to round up to 20 hundredths. So 2.20, we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, which you could write as 2.2, but to make it clear that you're rounding to the nearest hundredth, you're going to write 2.20. And later in your life, this actually might matter to show to actually show what you are rounding to. Let's do another example here. Cassandra spends 6.75 hours each day at school. Round the amount of time to the nearest hour. All right, so 6.75. So you might be a little confused, and actually I encourage you to pause the video again and try to solve it on your own. So you might be a little confused because they're not saying round it to the nearest tenth or hundredth or 1 or 10 or 100. They're saying to the nearest hour. But in this case, the hour is the ones place. So if we're going to round to the nearest hour, this is another way of saying round to the nearest 1. So we're going to round to the nearest 1. We go one place to the right. We go to look at the tenths place. If it's 5 or larger, we round up. Well, 7 is 5 or larger, so we round up to the next hour, which is going to be 7. So 7 hours. If this was 6.49999, once again, if we're rounding to the nearest hour, we go one place to the right. It doesn't matter that we have all these 9s here. We'd say, hey, look, 4 is less than 5. Therefore, we should round down. Round down. And you would round down to the next hour. Well, the next hour that's below 6.4999999 is 6 hours. But in this case, we had a 7 in the tenths place, which is definitely greater than or equal to 5. And so we would round up to the next hour, which is 7 hours.